Paul, thank you so much for agreeing to this interview. There's a lot of students here at Kansas State University who are interested in learning about how others have had their careers go in public relations. So, would you tell us about your position and the kinds of things that you do?
Well, thanks for having me, Joy. I am currently the Public Relations Manager at Bushnell Outdoor Products. Bushnell is really a family of brands. So today we have kind of three divisions. We have an eyewear division that's Bollé and Serengeti. We have a golf division that works with a number of the golf professionals, and then also just folks who enjoy golf with distance measuring devices. And then the division that I'm responsible for is our Bushnell Outdoor Products. So really it's anything that hits the outdoor world. So there's camping, there's hiking, there's hunting, there's a variety of things that fall under that. And we have about close to a dozen brands now that I represent on the public relations side. So I guess my full-time job, and the reason that I came to Bushnell, was to be the public relations manager for those brands. I also now additionally have responsibility for our digital media, which would include social media, video work, those kind of projects. So that's a person on our team that works on that initiative. And then I also oversee somebody that handles our pro staff. So those are any of our folks that are kind of celebrities or professionals that are out in the field who we associate with as a company.
Well, that sounds kind of fun. Could you maybe give us one example of a communication activity that demonstrates what you do?
For sure. I think for me personally, the thing I'm the most responsible for, I guess, would be getting our company coverage. So my number one goal when I come to work every day is to enhance our relationships with media, whether that's an editor at one of the larger publications, or maybe our outdoor writer for the Kansas City Star. So I'm constantly working with those folks, trying to anticipate their needs, help them get stories published. We do a number of events a year. I host 6 writer hunts a year where I actually take these writers and media into the field and let them use our product and experience kind of the Bushnell brand, if you will. We work with a number of writers through their conference organizations, so we go and support. For instance, Outdoor Writers of America, we go to the conference and support there, and then we exhibit our product and we talk to those folks about our product. So if I could boil down, my responsibilities into one thing, it's really building and enhancing those relationships with the media in order to helpfully garner positive coverage about our brands.
So you're telling me you get to go hunting and play with all the latest cool equipment as part of your job duties?
That's true, yeah. And I have a number of friends that kind of just poke me about that all the time and say, really, this is what you get paid for? But as you know, there's a ton of work that goes in behind the scenes. But I would say it's not a bad gig. Let's put it that way.
Well, it's sort of great that you have two passions that come together: the outdoors and communication. So, what's your educational background, Paul?
So I went to school at Kansas State University in the journalism and mass communications program. I finished there with an emphasis in public relations, and was a member of the PRSSA chapter at K-State. So, that was critical for me, building that foundation in journalism. I also came into the journalism school a little differently than a lot of my peers at that time, in that, I wasn't one of the students who had started out in high school being on the newspaper staff or yearbook staff. I was a little, I guess, not as strong in the writing skills as many of my peers. So that was one of the things I really was able to hone during my time at K-State. And I think as I've worked in public relations for almost 10 years now, it's the one skill that I think is probably one of the most important things that we do. I always look at it and say, if you can write, you can find opportunities somewhere. So that the A.Q. Miller School offered me a ton in that capacity. I was comfortable in some aspects of journalism, but really those foundational skills helped me build a career.
Yeah. So you've been out of school for 10 years. How do you keep current? How do you continue your education?
Well, it's, what I would tell students, what I tell interns that I hire, new folks that we bring on, is stay involved. I think that's one of the most critical things, is that you stay involved. I think as a student, I took for granted the fact that I always had professors around or peers that were studying similar things. And for instance, at Bushnell, while I work with outside partners here internally at Bushnell, I'm a one-man team. So it's important to me, and I think, you know, important to everyone in our field, that we stay involved in organizations. I know Joy will be showing a slide that talks about some of the organizations here in Kansas City that I'm a big proponent of, but two of them that I've found to be highly beneficial regardless of where you end up is Public Relations Society of America and then IABC, which is International Association of Business Communicators. You know, most of those organizations have a chapter in most large cities or even mid-sized cities for that matter. They offer typically professional developments every month, so you're able to stay current with the latest trends and topics. The other great thing is it's networking. You know, for after we leave school, we leave behind a lot of that network that we had with our professors and our peers and those kind of things. So as you jump into that new career, I think one of the smartest things you can do is get involved in those organizations. You know, and one of the best ways to kind of prove yourself is by volunteering. It doesn't have to be a time-consuming thing, but just showing that you have the initiative and that you're interested in the organization and that you're willing to put in the time.
Well, that sounds great. Well, what sort of advice would you give to students who are still hanging out in Manhattan, Kansas?
Well, I think the networking piece is a big thing. I suppose that's one of the questions I always give from students too, is we talk networking, and they say, well, what is networking really? And I would just say that networking cannot, you know, here's some advice I guess that I received from a career coach a while ago, and it's stuck with me. If you wait to network until you need to network, it's too late. So basically, you know, consider your network currently as a student. You have all those professors with these rich ties into the industry and with current alumni. You have your student network, that's those peers that are going to enter the job force at the same time. Now, while you may be competing with them at first for jobs, you'd be wise to stay in touch with some of those folks so that, you know, you all can share opportunities. So the networking piece is important. I think the other thing is, when you graduate, you know, don't stop learning. That's such a key thing, is because, you know, the academic programs that we have in place can only prepare us for what's going on at that point in time with technology and the amount of change that's happening in our industry, which is very exciting. It's our role as professionals to stay on top of that as well. And the other thing I would say is for those students that may have some time left or that are, you know, preparing for graduation, the more real world experience you can gain, the better. You know, as an employer, that's always what I'm looking for. I love the academic background, and I understand that takes a great deal of time, but use those winter breaks or use those times during the semester when you maybe have a lighter load, and even if it's not a formal internship, find a nonprofit in town that you could go volunteer for. You know, there's tons of opportunities. And I think not only to build your resume, but to help you to figure out as a student, here's where I'd maybe like to go, you know, because none of us graduate, or very few of us graduate, I should say, and know where we want to end up. It's all about figuring that out along the way, and the only way to really do that is to get some of that experience. Another tip that I'd give students that I think is kind of an underused idea in this whole realm is going out to seek informational interviews. For instance, if you decide, I want to end up in Kansas City and I'm interested in working in a public relations agency, go do some research on the agencies that are of interest to you, contact their HR departments, and just ask for informational interviews. In my experience, the employers love it because there's nothing at stake for them. They're not, you know, you're not asking them for a job, you're asking to learn more about the organization. At the same time, they can kind of interview a candidate and see if you might be a potential fit down the road when a position does open.
Well, any last words of wisdom? I think we're about done.
Yeah, I think, you know, I would again just stress, as I'm looking to hire folks, whether it be an internship or a full-time position, there's really three things I look for in candidates. That foundation in journalism, which your students are getting at Kansas State, so that's a huge one. I think secondly, work ethic, because not everybody comes out with that desire and work ethic to achieve, and I think in this profession it's critical because there are times when long hours happen, there's times when weekends, you know, work happens. if you don't have the work ethic to make sure the job's done, it's going to be tough in this industry. And then thirdly, I think I always say a curiosity or a passion. So I've worked in a number of industries throughout my career. Some of them I never had any idea that I'd work in, and some of them, frankly, where I thought, well, how am I going to do something like that? But if you always have a curiosity to learn or a passion to understand, kind of what's the latest trends, or how could this help my client, or how could this help my company, those are important things for you to, to grow in your career, and then use each opportunity you get to kind of build on your career. Joy, you mentioned earlier that, Bushnell kind of allows me to combine two passions, my love for the outdoors and my chosen career, public relations. And I think that's one of the great things about this field. But we also have to be realistic, knowing that most likely that's not going to be the first job we land. So look at your career kind of as a building block too. How do you gain that experience to get to that X or Y company that you eventually want to work for, or that type of industry? And then, go do it. Go make it happen.
I want to thank you so much for taking time out today to speak with us. So best wishes, and thank you once again.
Thank you, Joy, for having me.